On the day of my wedding, my fiancé lost a game and had to fulfill the punishment of giving his childhood friend Claire a drink through a kiss. In response, I turned around and kissed the best man, leaving everyone at the ceremony in shock. Mason and I had been in love for 8 years, and we were finally getting married on National Day. I was wearing a shiny suit, patiently waiting for him in the room. After a long time without seeing anyone, I heard an explosion of applause outside. When I looked, I saw my fiancé Mason and his childhood friend Claire. They had lost the game and had to fulfill the punishment. Slowly, Mason grabbed a cup from the table, filled his mouth with wine, and kissed Claire on the lips. Their lips and tongues touched, making a sound, and the wine soaked their collars. It took about 10 seconds until they separated. Claire's face was flushed, her lips red and slightly swollen. Everyone in the room turned to look at me, with expressions of mockery, pity, and malicious satisfaction. Mason's hand was still on Claire's waist, and she was staring at me without letting go, with not a trace of guilt, even a hint of provocation. Laughing, she said, "I was just helping you test the wedding game. Don't be mad." I wanted to ask what kind of game would make someone give a drink to another person's husband, mouth to mouth, at a wedding, but I kept my thoughts to myself. To my surprise, I didn't feel angry. Instead, a strange sense of relief washed over me, but my best friend didn't feel the same. She rolled up her sleeves, ready to fight. Mason stepped in front of Claire, looking at me sternly. "Audrey, if your friend touches Claire today, this marriage is over." I nodded, pulling my friend back and signaling for them to continue with the game. In my silence, Mason assumed I was upset. "Can you stop being so jealous? How many times have I told you that Claire is like a sister to me?" His tone was full of frustration. I gave a lazy smile and replied, "I'm not mad. Keep playing. Let's wait in the room." With my calm response, he had nothing else to say and sat down to continue playing Truth or Dare with his friends. Soon, Mason lost again and chose Truth. Claire didn't miss the opportunity. Looking at him tenderly, she asked, "If Audrey weren't here, would you marry me?" As she spoke, she pulled out a black bag and revealed stacks of $1 bills. "There's $200,000 here. It can't be a dowry, so consider it a gift." At this unexpected scene, Mason froze for a moment but quickly composed himself. With teary eyes under the shocked gazes of the crowd, he slowly nodded and said, "I would marry." Everyone's eyes turned to me, stunned. I got up from the bed, hiding my amused expression, and began to clap. "Let's congratulate this couple for finally being together. May they have many children," I said sincerely, but everyone thought I was furious. Mason frowned and spoke, clearly irritated. "Audrey, how many times have I told you? This is just a stupid game. Why are you saying this nonsense? Are you crazy? It's our wedding. What do you mean by that? Are you trying to cancel the wedding?" Hearing his accusations, I couldn't help but find it all funny. Who exactly didn't want to get married? He spoke again. "We haven't even married yet, and you're already suffocating me with your jealousy. I hate being controlled. You'd better change this horrible habit today." With that, he slammed the door. "Stay here with your sick jealousy. We can't have fun with you around." Claire, with an air of superiority, provocatively held Mason's arm. "Don't worry, stay here. We'll call you when the game is over." On the day of my wedding, my fiancé locked me out. I was forced to watch as he acted intimately with another woman, while the guests focused, holding their envelopes. Just thinking about it made me feel pathetic and ridiculous. But to everyone else, it seemed perfectly normal. No one was surprised by the way Mason and Claire flirted. In fact, everyone acted as if my role as the fool in this story was natural. In the past, I would have flipped the table and shouted at everyone. It would have ended in a big fight. Mason would have said he and Claire were just friends, and that I had a dirty mind. He would have been disappointed in me, claiming I was ruining everything and didn't trust him. No matter what I said, he would give me the silent treatment and still intentionally find Claire to make me jealous until I finally begged for forgiveness like a dog. Only then would he interrogate me, making me admit that I was possessive and irrational, and that I needed to trust him unconditionally. Over the years, through constant manipulation, I had become a crazy woman who followed every word Mason said. Even on the day of our wedding, I still instinctively questioned whether I was overreacting. But deep down, I knew it was they who were wrong. The door shut, cutting off my view, and all I could hear was the sound of laughter and chaos outside. I leaned against the window, watching the lively scene below. My friends were behind me, furious. This is too much. If this wedding doesn't happen, so be it. But any other words were quickly swallowed when they looked at my expression and decided not to continue. Everyone thought that this wedding wasn't Mason's idea but something I had begged for not long ago. Mason said he wanted to marry me, and I agreed, naively believing that, after 8 years of waiting, I would finally have my happy ending. But the events of today were like a cold shower, waking me up to reality. My best friend, Sofie, who had spoken for me earlier, was beyond frustrated. "You were humiliated like this, and you still want to marry him?" I looked at Sofie and said, "Then I won't." As I spoke, I began removing the hairpins and gold jewelry. Sofie was stunned and tried to stop me quickly. "Are you crazy?" But what I did next really shocked everyone. I looked at the mirror, removing one by one the golden pins that held my hair. With every accessory I let fall onto the vanity, it felt as if I was not only removing the weight of the hairstyle but years of humiliation and manipulation. Sofie was still by my side, holding my arm, looking at me as if I had lost my mind. But, for the first time in a long time, I was lucid. "Audrey, you don't have to do this. Not like this," she murmured, her voice filled with concern. I looked at her, but said nothing. There was a deep silence inside me. The anger that would normally explode was, this time, contained, cold, and meticulous. I knew exactly what I needed to do. There were no more tears to shed, no more arguments to have. I was exhausted. 8 years of my life wasted waiting for a future Mason never intended to give me. I took out the last pin and let my hair fall over my shoulders. Sofie watched uneasily. "What are you going to do?" she asked, apprehensive. "What I should have done a long time ago," I answered, finally standing up from the chair. The moment I opened the door to the room, I heard more laughter from the hall. Mason was there, sitting next to Claire, laughing loudly while the others encouraged him. They weren't worried in the slightest. To them, I was just an obstacle in the middle of the fun. The woman he promised to love, honor, and respect was just a meaningless detail in his grand show. I walked down the hall and entered the hall with firm steps. The people around stopped laughing and started staring at me, but not out of concern or respect. It was pure curiosity. I was the main attraction of the circus Mason had set up, and like a good manipulator, he was already prepared to ridicule me in front of everyone if I exploded. But I wouldn't give him that pleasure. Mason looked at me with a condescending smile. "Oh, you finally came out. I hope you've cooled off," he said, holding Claire's hand as if nothing were wrong. "I've cooled off, yes," I answered with a calmness that felt out of place in that situation. "And I've made a decision." Mason raised an eyebrow, curious. "Oh, really? And what is it?" "I'm not marrying you." The silence that followed was almost palpable. Everyone's eyes were on us, as if they were watching a movie where the climax had finally arrived. Mason's smile disappeared for a moment, but he quickly regained it. "Don't be dramatic, Audrey. It's just a game, remember? You're overreacting." "No, Mason. The exaggeration was believing you loved me. The mistake was thinking you'd be a man worthy of respect. But the truth is, you never intended to be. And you know what? I'm tired of being the clown in this relationship." Claire tried to hide her smile, but failed miserably. She looked satisfied with herself, as if she had won a competition. I stared directly at her and, without hesitation, continued. "You can have him, Claire. He's exactly your level. Two selfish cowards who deserve each other." Claire's smile faded, and an expression of irritation took over her face. Before she could respond, I turned to Mason. "And you, good luck. I hope she treats you the same way you treated me all these years. Maybe, when it's too late, you'll realize what you lost." He began to stand up, but I raised my hand to stop him. "No, there's no more talking. The party's over for me." I turned before leaving, looking at the guests, many of whom were holding envelopes filled with money. Oh, and for those who brought gifts, leave them with the happy couple. They need them more than I do. With that, I left the hall, feeling their eyes on my back. Sofie ran after me, unable to hold back a satisfied smile. "I've never been so proud of you," she said. I let out a sigh, but it was a sigh of relief, not sadness. "Me too, Sofie. Me too." We walked together out of the party, and the cool night air enveloped me like a liberating breeze. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. There were no more doubts or questions about what I should have done or said. I was free. As I walked out of that hall, something inside me changed. For years, I had been like a puppet in Mason's hands, trapped in an endless cycle of empty promises and emotional manipulation. But now I was free, and not just free to move on, free to make sure he would never forget the mistake of underestimating me. Sofie followed me to the parking lot, the cool night wind cutting through the silence between us. I stopped in front of her car and, for the first time in a long time, let out a low, bitter laugh. She looked at me curiously, but didn't ask anything. I knew I was about to do something that few would understand, but honestly, I didn't care. That night would not end in peace. Not for him. "It's about to begin," Sofie said, staring directly at me. "This is the last time anyone laughs at me without consequences." She smiled back, that knowing smile only a true friend can give. She knew that nothing I did would be thoughtless. Sofie had always been by my side, silently watching as I lost parts of myself for the sake of a love that never existed. But today, it would be different. "What do you need?" she asked without hesitation. "First, I need enough time for him to think he got away with it." The following week, I cut all contact with Mason and anyone connected to him. I left without explanations, leaving no trace. I let him believe my departure was an impulsive act, something he could ignore and move on from. That's how Mason dealt with everything. He ignored it until the reality disappeared. And for a while, that's exactly what he did. I knew he would move into Claire's house as soon as possible. It was too predictable. A walking cliché who thought he was special. It was easy to track every move they made because Claire's social media happiness was unbearably excessive. Travel photos, fancy dinners, and lovey-dovey messages that made anyone want to puke. The perfect life, or so they thought. In the meantime, I started building my own strategy. I was silent, meticulous. I returned to studying and working on something Mason never believed I was capable of. I opened a small consultancy specializing in helping women who had gone through situations similar to mine. The success was immediate. Within months, I had already built a solid network of contacts and clients. Each woman who came to me was another piece in the chessboard of my revenge. At the same time, I started gathering information. Nothing too explicit, just small details about Mason and Claire's financial lives, their businesses, and mainly, their debts. Mason was never good with money, and Claire, well, she was even worse. Soon, I discovered they were on the brink of financial disaster, maintaining a life of appearances based on loans and empty promises. Then, I made my move. I sent an anonymous message to Claire, revealing a secret about Mason, something he could never admit. During the entire time they were together, he still sought me out. Of course, it wasn't true, but Claire was as predictable as a ticking bomb. It only took a few hours for her to confront him, and the argument started escalating quickly. Every word out of her mouth was another knife stabbed into the fragile trust they had built. Mason tried calling me several times, but I never answered. Each time he tried to reach out, I knew he was losing control, something he hated. Insecurity grew inside him like poison. Claire, on the other hand, began to pull away, unable to deal with the idea that Mason had never loved her the way she believed. The happy posts on social media became less frequent. The trips stopped. The fairy tale they had tried to build was crumbling, and I had barely begun. Next, I targeted their most vulnerable point, the house they had bought together. Using the information I had gathered, I discovered they had given the house as collateral for a loan they couldn't repay. With the help of contacts in my consultancy, I secretly bought the debt. Now, legally, the house was in my hands. The morning Mason and Claire received the eviction notice, I imagined the panic on their faces. Claire, helpless, would beg for a solution, and Mason, stubborn and proud, wouldn't accept anyone's help. Exactly as I had planned. And then, I showed up. I waited until they were at the height of their desperation before meeting with Mason. I arranged a meeting at a discreet cafe, and he arrived worn out and defeated. For the first time in years, he looked like a broken man, without the arrogance and confidence he always carried. "Audrey," he began, his voice heavy with frustration, "please, we need to talk. This has gone too far." I smiled, a cold and distant smile, and stared at him without blinking. "No, Mason. This has gone exactly far enough." He looked at me, confused, trying to understand how I had managed to turn the tables on him. It was the expression I had waited years to see. "Why are you doing this?" he asked, as if he were the victim. "Because for years, you played with me. Mason, you made me a joke, a toy in your hands. And now, I decided it was my turn to play." He opened his mouth to respond, but I raised my hand to silence him. "Oh, and before you ask, Claire already called me. She's ready to leave you." Mason paled. He knew he had lost. Not just the house, but also the only person who had tolerated his lies and manipulations. "What do you want?" he asked in a low voice. I leaned over the table, keeping my gaze fixed on his. "I want you to feel exactly what I felt all these years. Insignificant. Alone." I left him there, sitting, drowning in his own misery. There was nothing else to say. My revenge was complete, and the best part was, I didn't need him or what he thought I wanted. I had my freedom, my success, and, finally, the peace he could never destroy. When I left the cafe and felt the fresh air on my face, a genuine smile formed on my lips. Mason was the past, and as for me, I was just the beginning of my own future. After that meeting with Mason, something changed definitively within me. It wasn't just the feeling of victory over someone who made me suffer, it was something deeper. For the first time in years, I felt light, as if I had released an anchor that had been dragging me to the bottom. The revenge was complete, but above all, I was at peace. From that moment on, my life only got better. I started channeling all the energy I had wasted on Mason into myself and my projects. My consultancy grew faster than I ever imagined. Each woman I helped rise again was like another brick in the foundation of a new version of myself. A strong, free, and accomplished version. Soon, I began expanding the business, opened branches in other cities, and built a team with people who shared my vision. In less than 2 years, my company's name became a reference in the field of support and empowerment for women. I was invited to speak at conferences, events, and interviews, and without realizing it, I became a respected public figure. In time, life gifted me in unexpected ways. I met new people, friends who truly wanted what was best for me, who were by my side for who I was, not for what they could take from me. And one day, completely unexpectedly, I met someone special. It wasn't the kind of love that burns and consumes, like I had thought I had with Mason. It was a calm, secure, and mutual love, something I had never experienced before. On a personal level, I decided to embrace the simple things in life. I traveled to places I had always wanted to visit, allowed myself to live new experiences, and rediscovered who I was, without external pressures. I took courses I never thought I would, ventured into hobbies I had always been curious about but never explored for fear of looking ridiculous. Today, my life is a series of small joys and big accomplishments. Mason, on the other hand, lost his way. With Claire out of his life and no longer having the financial support he had always taken for granted, he sank into debt and loneliness. There were rumors that he tried to recover the lifestyle he once flaunted, but no one was willing to help him anymore. The people who once surrounded him disappeared, and little by little, he became nothing more than a shadow of the man he once thought was invincible. Sometimes people ask me if I feel sorry for him, and to be honest, I don't. I don't wish him harm. My revenge wasn't about completely destroying him, but about freeing myself. And that's exactly what I did. He no longer has space in my thoughts, nor in my heart. He is a closed chapter, a lesson learned. Today, when I think about the past, I don't feel sadness or regret. In fact, I feel gratitude. Gratitude for having gone through it all, And most of all, for having had the courage to turn the page and rewrite my story. My life is now exactly how it should be, and the most important thing, it is mine.